I hope so.
I
Hi,
think
Jess.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm very excited. Obviously, would be our first recording, and I'm excited because before we even hit record, we're already having such good conversation.
It's so
um,
weird how you and I just kind of almost have like the same mentality. Like we don't have the exact same because I feel like my pitfalls, like you have the side that like helps my pitfalls, and then I have the side that helps your pitfalls. So we like balance each other out in a really good way.
yeah,
If that
isn't that so funny? Like
makes
we haven't even met in person,
I know.
and we talk every day like that.
Yep.
I mean, it's not weird for me, but it's, the way you find friends is really, you can't, it's unexpected sometimes. So I'm really happy about that.
There's no way for me to not put this weirdly. What's your sign?
I'm a Scorpio.
You're a
I'm a
Scorpio?
Scorpio.
That's
Yeah,
why.
November 3rd.
I'm a
How about you?
Virgo.
So you're September?
August, late August.
August. Oh,
I'm like
kind
right
of
on
not.
that Leo Virgo cusp.
I think it goes up to September.
Yeah, because
Virgos.
my boyfriend's a Virgo too.
Oh,
That's why we always laugh. Like it, not to get
it's
super dark right off the bat, but like a
no,
lot of
it's
Virgos are serial killers. So
I know. I think Ted Bundy was a Scorpio,
was
if
he?
I'm not mistaken. It's not to be proud of, but
No, it's not.
no, it would just be like, to me, like when I look at serial killers, I'd be like, they must be a Scorpio for some reason. I don't know why I think that right away, but I would feel bad if there were no Scorpio serial killers, because I think that they would make a good serial killer if they were Scorpios. Because my friends actually they get really weirded out because I told you I used to be a flight attendant. Well, I am still a flight attendant, but I'm just on a break right now. So randomly, it would come up in our conversations that I would say, like, do you guys know the best job to be a serial killer would be a flight attendant, because who's gonna trace you? You're like literally flying all over the country in like in a span of a day or in a week. Like, you've been to so many places, so like how are they gonna trace you? It depends on the crowd, and they would, if they're like us, they'd be like, oh, what, oh my god, like we haven't thought about that before. But if it's like I don't know, like another kind of crowd, like more conservative, they were like, you're so weird.
Like that's awful. Why would you say that?
Yeah. Like, why would you like, who thinks that? I'm like, me.
I think that's another reason why you and I get along so well. Like I noticed this, especially when I was a bartender, because most of the bars that I worked at, I worked with other female bartenders. I know I have a really bad dark sense of humor, and sometimes I just brush it off, but sometimes I would say something just trying to be funny. It's something about me is I'll say, if I know the most thing to say, I'm gonna say it if I think I'm gonna make one
Right.
person laugh, even if it's just me and that one person. I don't care about the rest of the room. But like the females that I would work with, they'd be like, "My God, why would you say this?" Like because it's funny. We're not
Yeah.
in a library. We're in a bar. Like
I feel like we're operating in a completely different plane, or like I guess, because sometimes like I really freak people out, and to me it was like, I thought that was funny, you know.
that was me too. I had a group
And
of friends back in the last bar that I worked at. I became friends with this group of people, and I had never been the oldest friend in a group, and it was just kind of weird because I was always like friends with older people. I get along with boomers so
um,
well, and it's because they're so just brutally honest that it hurts, and that's what I like. But when I accumulated this group of like younger friends and we joke around, I'm the first one to crack a joke about myself, and they did not like it. They hated it so much. And I'm like, it's a joke. Like this is how I was raised. Like
I feel like,
I'm not.
yeah, it's a good it's always a good icebreaker to do like self-deprecating jokes, because especially when people, you'll think that, oh, they might get intimidated by me because like maybe I'm more senior to them, or
Mm-hmm.
we don't know each other yet. And I do that I feel like that's subconsciously my coping mechanism of like breaking the ice, because if you can make fun of yourself, then you're not that serious, so it opens up,
Exactly.
people.
I think
Yeah.
I do that more often, especially because, like, working in the bar, I heard so much that people, before they spoke to me, they thought that I would be a stuck up. So I try and, like, cut that notion really quick just by, like, making a joke about, like, my Dumbo ears or, like, anything. Because it's things that I always grew up hearing. And that was something that my grandma always told me. She's like, if you just beat them to the punch, like, what are they going to say?
That's a good idea. I never
I know, right?
actually thought about that. But yeah, it's the same idea, different executions, because you like beat them to the punch of like your biggest insecurities. With me, I don't know, I go for jokes that are so unexpected. At work, I would be so put together always, so then people think that I'm stuck up, right? Like my hair wouldn't, not a single hair would be out of place, whatever. And I would just say like, "Oh, I'm so clumsy today. I just spilled coffee on my uniform," and they'd be like, it's like out of left field. Like this person couldn't spill coffee, or something like that. But yeah, it's really nice to find your people. Is what I'm taking from this, because Kiwi, who's going to join me tomorrow, as we talk about our friendship history, that's how we found each other too, is through dark humor, where it comes out of nowhere, and you'd be like, oh my god, he's one of my people, like he would
Mm-hmm.
get. And it's just so amazing. And obviously I wanted to, for the people who are listening to this right now, like I want them to I want to give them a background of how we actually became friends. Like it's
It's odd.
completely,
It's
yeah, like
very odd.
it's very odd, kind of like almost creepy in a way that it's like full circle, like
Mm-hmm.
full circle moments, that the universe is almost like conspiring so that you get to this, like we get to talk now at this very moment, because we met on TikTok. And
Mm-hmm.
you're TikTok famous.
That's
um
that's very
how did you get
gratuitous.
to that? How did you even start? Like it's so, like even for me, like it's, I know it's so hard for me to grow exponentially, but I feel like for people like you, like it comes so easily.
I so you and I have talked about this before, how like
Mm.
I started with just like reviewing makeup and skincare on this app. And it was only because I got like 30% off if I bought from them. So I didn't expect anything to get like to come out
It's
of it.
only
Like you got
something that I would do.
it's I'm such a cheapskate. Like I'm a cheapskate to where it's like it's embarrassing. And I'm like 30% off. Okay, I'm not going to go to Ulta or Target anymore. I'm just going to buy through them. Like I said, you get so on that app you get paid for views and you get commission, but I at that point I was so sick of like I value the influencer and like the makeup artist and the dermatologist, but like in reality we're all different and what works for one person isn't going to work for all. So I was
Mm.
like, I'm just going to buy stuff and I'm just going to be brutally honest. And a lot of people really loved it and it started to grow and I started hosting live shows on that app and a lot of people were like, I wish we could see you like on TikTok or on Instagram.
Mm.
And I was like, I'm not really much of the social media person, but I started seeing like people were connecting with me through more than just makeup and skincare because
Mm.
I would be very vulnerable and I'd be like, I'm gonna do a super bougie skincare routine today because I have a migraine and I feel like shit. So I started doing it on TikTok, and I've mentioned this to you before too. Like I get so frustrated because I've put together these videos where I'm like, I'm just trying to share my opinion and what I
Mm.
like. Not everyone's gonna like. I'm not here to influence you. I'm here to inform you because you're smart enough to make your own decisions. And the ball just kind of started rolling. And I think the stupidest thing, my account blew up because I posted a video about a mop and a bucket. And
Wait, has this anything to do with WAP?
with
with
No,
Cardi B?
no, not with Cardi B. It was an actual mop bucket. Like,
Okay.
there was no dance, there was no
Okay.
song, there was no nothing. I got this mop and bucket off of TikTok Shop because I was about to do this move out clean for a lady, and she wanted me to scrub the walls and the ceilings, and she wanted me to use Fabuloso, and people either loved it or
Wait,
they
on the
hated it.
ceiling?
On the ceiling, because
What?
she burned a lot of incense. She
Oh,
was
okay, okay, okay,
a
okay.
big
That
incense
makes sense
burner.
now. I'm just like,
I know.
what?
That's exactly
Mop
what
the
people
ceiling.
saw. They're like, my gosh, she's ruining this lady's house. And I'm like, no, like she paid me to do this. And just for some reason, I was like, I'm gonna record it.
I need
Because
to see this video. For some
it's
reason, I haven't. You didn't
you sh-
pin this. That's why.
I didn't,
Yeah,
because people
yeah.
got so mad. And I'm like, how are you gonna get mad over how some other person asked me to clean their house? I expected
Because
this video to go nowhere.
yeah, like no, it's just the weirdest thing because I feel like when you wet your ceiling, it's eventually gonna fall off,
This
right?
Yeah. But like that's the so I showed it because like it was that mop and bucket thing where you can like wring it out and it like
Yeah.
squeegees out all the rest. I got it because I'm super lazy and I have a lot of houses to clean when I was a house cleaner. And to clean this lady's house as a move out clean, she was a sweet person. I loved her, but her house was dirty and very dusty because of all the incense and stuff.
Mm.
So knowing that I had to do a move out clean with cleaning like all the walls and everything to get ready for the next tenant, I was like, I don't want to go through with my hands and scrub it all and keep
I
wringing it
mean,
out.
yeah, I
So
wouldn't touch anything either. You don't
exactly.
know. You don't know what they do in the house.
Yeah. So like I'd use that little mop and bucket and like squeegee it before doing the walls and the ceiling. And like I said, people got so mad. A lot of people liked it, but a lot of people were like, you're dumb, you're gonna ruin it, you can't do this. And I'm like, the lady asked me to do it. Like she paid me good money to clean her house that way. I'm so sorry it offended you. It should be like common knowledge. Like if you have a popcorn ceiling, you obviously can't do what I'm doing. But
That is so crazy. Like what? So from there, from the bucket and the mop that has nothing to do with WAP,
wop wop wop.
um, so then you exploded, and so when we met, I think you already have like about 60K
I think I'm at
followers.
like 58,000 followers right now, which
Wow.
baffles me because I can barely stand myself. So I don't know why.
No, I think that as you've said, like you're very, very relatable. Um, because when you did a video, which is how we met, when you did the video for a serial killer, I was like, oh my God, like, nobody ever talked about my game like this ever. But that's how I want my game to be talked about. Like that's how I want people to see my game as like, your bail out of jail card or your therapy because you can't afford real therapy. And that to me, like I'm just very thankful that finally somebody understood like what I'm trying to do.
My boyfriend laughed at it because, like, I don't know if you've noticed, like, when we talk, I'm usually more. I've told you this before, like, on camera, I'm like, it's the bartender version of me that I cultivated for 9 years. Like, I like to be the bubbly person, but, like, if I'm alone, I'm so quiet and, like, nonchalant. But, like, I like to. I'm an emotional sponge, so if I'm around somebody, I'm gonna be like more upbeat. But for some reason, when I got your game, and I was like, I'm gonna post about it just because, like, why not? And I was very deadpan voice, like this is the most messed up game ever. Like not trying to be
Yeah,
bubbly,
yeah, yeah, yeah. You were not. Yeah, you
not
were not
bubbly.
like trying to sell it at all. Like you were
Mm-mm.
just be like, "This is up," and
Yeah, it's
I'm
so
showing you
funny.
what I'm trying to do right now.
When did you? I'm curious. When did you release your game? I don't think we've ever actually talked about like when you dropped your game because I had
Yeah.
seen it advertised long before I bought it.
So I actually came up with my game January 2023. I thought about it for the very first time while we were driving to Costco. Like it just came to me and I told my partner, "Hey, I think I just came up with a card game in my head." And he's like used to that because he's like he knows that his boyfriend is like psychotic sometimes, right? Like I talk in my head and I create things in my head and I'll just translate it later. Sometimes I'm not able to express it as much as clearly as I want to, but he gets it. So he just says like, okay, write it down so we can play it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it was actually, it's so funny because this project is actually the first ever project that I actually took all the way to the end. Like it's always with me, like sewing or like bodybuilding or anything that I get myself into. Like I would be so good in the beginning, and then just
You
move
lose the
on to other.
passion.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
But this one, while I was writing the content, I was laughing the entire time. So I was having so much fun writing it. And I'm like, true, like after a month, like I'm ready to print this out. And so it launched on Kickstarter. So I came up with it January. It launched on Kickstarter April. And because I'm so dumb, of course I launched it on April 1st, right?
oh geez.
So when I sent the text and the emails and the posts so that my friends can support me. Of course, nobody believed me because I mean, obviously, it's so crazy. It's a serial killer card game. Obviously, this is a April Fool's prank. So I almost never got funded on Kickstarter because everybody never believed that. Nobody believed that I was doing it.
Oh
Um,
geez.
yeah, so it took, what is it, January, February, March. So like 4 months. And then so the entire April was like the campaign to raise funds. I got funded like I think maybe 4 or 3 days left. Because at Kickstarter, you don't get the money unless you're like fully funded. And
Yeah.
of course, again, because like I never created anything before. I'd never been ever been on Kickstarter, been on there. So of course, like I thought, your funding goal should be um how much you would use to pay I mean and to create the game and
Yeah.
then to pay yourself too. So my funding goal was 20K, and apparently that was like the dumbest thing ever because you should only do like I don't know, like 5K to start so that people when it gets funded it's a whole other thing. But yeah, and then when I got funded, it's not to brag. I had
Oh, brag
I
away. You deserve to. You never do.
No, but like there were other games that launched the same week as me or like the same 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Um and when I started mailing my copies to my supporters, like I was already shipping them, right?
Mm-hmm.
The people that I launched games with, they were still on their like creating stage. And like you always have like these updates because I follow them too. Like you kind of almost like support each other.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I get those updates, and I think some of them haven't even printed yet.
Oh
Because I
shoot.
mean, on Kickstarter, like it's not a guarantee, because as a creator, you make it or you don't make it. And those people, it's not guaranteed you'll get a refund. So, but that was actually really scary because I printed it and shipped it out, and then I had no money because I mean, obviously, to create something, it wouldn't just take 20K. Like it would take
It takes a
so much
lot.
more than that. Yeah, and I was like, okay, now what? I'm funded, and I created my game. So what am I gonna do? So the next step would be like to sell it online, and I don't know, like for some reason, something was telling me you need to go on TikTok because I was never on TikTok before the game, and that's how it happened. Like I made friends, and it, I'm just very lucky and very thankful for all the people that helped me make this happen. You know who you are. Um, uh, so that's how you heard about me. Did you find the game on TikTok or did you find it somewhere else?
I had been seeing it all over my TikTok and my Facebook. I had shown it to my boyfriend multiple times. I was like, listen, like I want to buy this game. It was just like, and like I'm one of those people that like I go digging down the rabbit holes, and when I went digging down the rabbit hole on yours, the first time I saw, and I was like, oh, he's a small business. It's a
Not
little.
even a business at that time.
I know, I don't
I'm
think so.
sure.
Very, very
Just a
basic
person.
website at the time. I know you've
Yeah.
updated the website because I've gone on there recently, and I'm like, oh, it looks so nice, and everything like moves. But
Yes.
I kept showing my boyfriend. I was like, I really want to get us this game like someday. And then our situation happened, which I've told you a little bit about. We actually had to pick up and move to another state due to a family emergency. One of our family members can't live alone anymore due to mobility issues, and it was just like it really sucked because we had been in Arizona for like 7 years, and we had been trying to move from Arizona for 6 years and 11 months. We hated that place. Like,
Yeah.
hated
I
Arizona.
almost considered moving there. I've
Don't
been to like so many, I lived in so many places at this point, but I did consider living in Arizona.
don't go.
No.
Don't go. Don't get me wrong, there's very, very nice people. I have a lot of good friends from Arizona. But the thing that drove me crazy the most is because I moved there from Colorado, and Colorado is not known for like being like the friendliest states. But at least like if you go to Walmart here and you make eye contact with someone, they'll like smile or give you the head nod. Just like, hello, fellow human, I hope you're doing all right. And then go along.
Right.
And they don't do that in Arizona, and it gave me
Wow.
such bad anxiety that
Oh,
like
wow.
no one will just like smile back. And I asked one of my coworkers, I was like, how come people don't smile in Walmart? And she's like, why are you smiling at strangers in Walmart? I'm like, I don't know, I guess I'm the weirdo. But
Oh my God. That just
we've been
reminds me of when I first became a flight attendant. You know how like of course our job is like to greet everybody and smile to everybody at the airport,
yeah.
not just your airplane. Unconscious, or what is it? Subconsciously doing it in public at the groceries. Yeah. So
Maybe it's just the way that we were raised. Like I don't know. I was just raised like if I meet a stranger's eyes, I'm gonna be like I'm not inviting the conversation. I don't want a conversation with you. But like I just see that you're existing, and I hope your day is going okay. Like
oh.
that's it. But we had been saving up to move from Arizona since we got there, and then this all happened, so we couldn't move to the place that we wanted to move. We had to come back home to Colorado and take care of our family member. And when that happened, I was like, you know what, like we deserve something that's going to bring us some fun, something that's going to bring us some joy. I'm going to get us the serial killer card game. And
Aw.
at that time I'd already been in the creativity program. So I was like, cool, like I'll get the card game and I'll make a post about it. And if it goes somewhere, it goes somewhere. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And with that post, before we started talking and before I gave you the rights to like promote it, I had made the money back from
Wow.
the game, from what I spent on your game. So it was like a full circle. Like it worked out. It worked out really well. And then
Well, it's just like, and I want the rest of the world to know this, because I do suffer from anxiety and depression. So during that week, when Jess put in her order, I was in one of those mindsets, or like, and those weird. It was a weird moment. Like it was a weird week where I didn't want to do anything. Um, what is it? Start of February, and that day there was only your order, right? I was so like, oh my God, like I made custom ribbons and custom gift wrappers for this. I don't think I think I'm gonna lose a lot of money because nobody's gonna buy this, right? And because there was only your order, I was like, "Ugh, I don't want to do this. Like maybe I'll wait for like a few days later so I could mail like, I don't know, more orders." But that day something told me, no, just do it. Just do it. Just mail it today, because the USPS picks up from my house. And so I did that. And then, luckily it got to you just in time for you to make a video on Valentine's Day.
I
And
know.
what your video, I think you posted it, and we were on our way to our Valentine's Day dinner, right? So because like when we were in the car, and I was like, somebody posted about me, or about the game, and that's so cool, and that already lifted my spirits, right? But during dinner, my phone kept like ringing, ringing, ringing. I'm like, orders are coming in. And I'm like, this is weird. And then I realized, like, oh my God, her video went viral. And that you actually saved my life that month, because it wasn't just, financially, it was more like, because as a business owner, it's really a roller coaster every day, or every month. Like, it's when you don't make enough money, it's so scary. But sometimes things like that happen, and I know I shouldn't give up, but I know a lot of people would just, oh, it's not working out, so I'll move on to something else. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm thankful that I didn't do none of that, because here we are now. Like,
I know.
I gained a friend. It's a full circle moment for me, and that's why I say, like, it's so creepily planned by the universe, so that now we're doing this podcast.
I know.
Um, um, like, so when I thought about it, you know how, like, I approached you and I was like, oh my God, I hope that you're gonna say yes to this
Mm-hmm.
idea, because this is crazy, but, like, why not? So, like, when I told you about the podcast, what made you say yes? Like,
Just, I don't know. You and I've had plenty of conversations ever since like me first buying the game. And I think one of our very first conversations is you told me all of that. You told me that you had been in a really dark spot, that my stupid little video helped pull that out of you and like just give you a little bit of sunshine. And
mm,
I've told you too, like I've been in a really dark spot. We struggle, we go through our ups and downs,
yeah.
and the more that I get to talk to you and the more that I see, like I just like you as a person, and I like the
Oh, thank
whole.
you.
I know everybody like sees your game and they don't see you and like the whole your whole like mindset behind it. Of course, it's a funny dark game, but
Mm,
like you and I have talked about this, like the most traumatized, most messed up people are like some of the nicest people because we know how it feels to feel like shit and we don't want anyone else
exactly.
to feel that way. But
Yeah.
we also have this really messed up dark sense of humor. So when you came to me with the
Yeah.
idea of a podcast, that pulled me out of my funk a little bit. I've been in a
Oh,
funk for a while, but just
you
like
didn't tell
knowing
me this yet.
I know I'm very secretive with my depression and my anxiety. I think it's just because I don't like to feel vulnerable. I don't know. I just
Mm,
I'm an
I
emotional
get that.
sponge, so then I
Mm,
assume that everyone else is. So that's why I don't like to share like my dark feelings because I'm like, what if they're
mm.
an emotional sponge like me and they absorb all the sad shit that I've been carrying around?
It's so weird, because I'm like that too. Like, if there was any bad news and I'm like, they're not doing well today, I'm not gonna tell them. Maybe
I'm just
tomorrow.
gonna suffer in silence. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I'm just gonna cry inside.
But when you,
um,
I remember when you like talked to me about like why you wanted to start a podcast so bad, and it was to like build a community and to make the people that support your game and support your dream to like make them feel more included. And I really thought like I wanted to do this so bad because you're such a good person, and I think
oh,
people deserve to see more of you, and like the more that they see of you and the more that you get to talk, they'll see
it's
like
yeah.
you're a good person and you have good intent. You have good intent behind a really darked up game.
It's so weird, because I think I was so scared of putting myself out there. Like, okay, so I don't think I've told you this before, but when I was marketing the game and becoming, successful on TikTok, because my game blew up around Halloween last year, and then it slowed down because of holiday season's over,
Mm-hmm.
and it's normal. So, but one of the marketing consultants that I talked to, I think she did my head, because she said you can't show your face. It has to be like a neutral brand. Like, it has to be like, they're going to be biased on how you look, and they're going to be biased on your your life choices, and they're
Mm-hmm.
not gonna buy your game. They're gonna look at you and they're not gonna trust you. Almost like saying, "Wow, like why wouldn't people trust me when they see me?" And that
That's
really,
really nice.
yeah, it's so like I feel like it's very like maybe it could be true to a lot of brands where the owners really don't get involved, but this is a very personal project to me. So
Mm-hmm.
now that I've gotten out of that funk, I feel like now I'm realizing like what these people supported me from the beginning and they bought the game, and the least I could do to thank them is to play it with them, you know? Because
Mm-hmm.
like I would want to play with other people from around the world, and I feel like because when I got my orders from Kickstarter and when I started selling it online, I have people buying it all the way from New Zealand and Australia and South Africa. It's like wow, like a lot of people actually want to hear about this, and they have the same escape that I'm trying to recreate. So now, I just when I thought about the idea of doing a podcast, I feel like it's the best time to really just be out there and own it. Like I feel that there was a phase or a moment in my business career or designing this game that I was consciously avoiding being on the spotlight because of what that marketing consultant said. And I believe, I feel like deep inside I believe that because obviously like I have issues, I have a lot of insecurities, and for somebody to say that, I mean they're a pro. So who am I to question that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so here we are now. I feel like when I got out of the funk, I was like, there are people who are gonna like me for me, and there are people who are sure they're gonna get turned off like, oh, I didn't expect that guy to have been the creator of this game, and that's lame. And there would be those people, and I feel like, well, when are we gonna stop trying to please everybody?
We're not pizza. We
Yeah,
can't make everyone happy.
yeah. And even then, pizza enjoys its or suffers from its own debates, like pineapple on pizza.
I,
You can't please everybody.
mm-mm.
Um, And even with because I just sent the invite email yesterday, and we already have so many applicants to join our
I know.
podcast. Yeah, and
I'm so
I
excited.
was like mind blown, and because I did the questionnaire, and so I know exactly what they do and where they are in the world, so we
Mm-hmm.
can like possibly pair them up strategically. It blows my mind. The people that wanted to go on there, and I'm like, oh, so people don't hate me. Like there are people who are going to want to play with me, regardless of how I look or how I act or how I talk. Like
Mm-hmm.
for some reason, like it's so deep rooted in me, those insecurities, and I feel like when we do the podcast, that would be able to talk more about these things that bother us, like subconsciously, the things that we don't even think about that are keeping us from achieving our goals. Yeah, so I'm really excited, and I know that you guys, you and Kiwi, you share the vision, and I'm like, how can I be so lucky, really, to
I
have you
know.
guys?
I remember the other thing I told you about, like being excited about the podcast, is because of how many. When I made my first video about your game, when I first got it in the mail, and I was doing my stupid deadpan humor voice, and I was like, "This is not for normal people. This is for mentally screwed up people um, to play because it's cheaper than bail money." Um, there were so many comments in there saying like, "But what if you don't have friends because of these mental issues? So like, I want the game, but I have no one to play with."
Aw.
That really that resonated with me because that's really the spot that me and my boyfriend were stuck in. We played this game, and it's supposed to be a 3-player game. It was just the two of us, but we made a ghost pile. Like, I don't know if you ever saw like I forget what the other one is. I think it's Cards Against Humanity, where it's like you can have rando Cardrizian sitting there as like a random person. And so that's what we did when we first got it in, because we were so excited. We had been looking at your game for so long, and we had so much stuff going on in our life. Our lives were changing 180, and we just needed like a break. And we sat there and played for like 4 hours. I know you're only supposed to get like
Right.
5 victims to win, but we're like, we're gonna go
Well,
through all of it. I want to see all the cards.
I do have a friend that every time they come over, I mean, we have tons of other board games, right? Every time they come over, they just want to play my game. I'm like, I know you like it very much, but like, can we play other games too? Like, you have other games, but she's like, no, it's just like it's different every time. It's what she tells me. It's different every time, and it really, I guess, lets her anger out, or I don't know. Yeah, so that happens. To your point, where people were concerned that they don't have nobody to play with. I can't remember who I talked to, but they did say they were playing but on their own.
How do you do that?
And like, I guess, like, you pick a victim and then you have your deaths, almost kind of like just introspection. It was they had so much fun as well. I mean, I get it, like, especially when you don't know what the cards are yet, like the first time you open it. I think it's, yeah, I actually did play it like that before, and I think that if you're worried that you're not gonna enjoy it, being on your own, like, I think you're just not playing it the way introspectors play it. Is a lot of people feel catharsis playing serial killer alone. And now you're not going to be alone because we have a podcast. We're going to play with all of you. We'll try. I mean, how many ever people would want to join, then, we'll try to accommodate you on the guest list. So no worries.
I know, I'm so excited. I'm excited to, especially like, I don't know, after meeting you and after like seeing all of those comments. So you and I both suffer from anxiety, so it's kind of like hard. Sometimes it's really hard for us to get out. And I don't know, I have the same feeling about this podcast as I did about one of my friends wanted me to go to a punk rock concert with them. And like, I love the band and everything, but I was kind of scared because like, this is a band that people would like mosh to and like could get crazy with. And we went, and I noticed like a bunch of people. I don't know if you've ever noticed it. I play with my fingers a lot. It's kind of like my anxious thing. I'll play with my fingers, or I'll mess with my hair, or I'll like touch my nose. Like, I have all these things that like gives me away as being like an anxious person. But when I got there, I saw so many people in the crowd doing the same thing. Like, they'd go join in the mosh pit and then like come out and like twiddle their fingers, or like recover for a minute and then go back in. And I was like, these are my people. Like, I have no reason to feel insecure or anxious or like weirded out. Like, these people feel just like me. And I feel like with this podcast, it'll be the same, because a lot of us, especially with dark humor, like, people kind of look at us weird. And then, like, if you don't find your group and you're stuck around people that just find you weird for so long, like, you start to think something's wrong with you.
Right.
And we're like, there's nothing wrong with you. Dark thoughts are totally normal. I mean,
not a lot of people would
obviously
like to admit that, but
exactly.
everybody
But
has it. Everybody has it.
Think about like way back in the days of like the conquerors and stuff. The people, I bet you all the people, like, I don't even know how to. The only person that comes to mind is like Genghis Khan. Like, you don't think Genghis Khan had like some of the darkest, sickest thoughts ever? People back in those days kind of like.
I think his victims would have had the darkest, sickest thoughts ever, because I feel like when you go through so much trauma like that and you survive it, thinking about those dark thoughts is really just daydreaming too at that point.
It is, and it's like, I'm not saying it's the best form of therapy, but it is still a form of therapy.
Yeah,
that's
definitely
a lot more affordable than actual therapy.
I did try it actually, for reals. I didn't want to get too dark, but I did have the chance to actually do it. But I discovered that it wasn't for me. I feel like it was the how do you say it? Like, the amount of therapy I needed cannot, or the amount of conversation that I know I would need to be able to feel okay was not going to be a once a week 1 hour therapy session, and usually that's what they do, or they do like twice a week, or but To me, what really helped was because I needed so much information. Like that's just the kind of person I am, that when something's bothering me, like I need to get all the information and then process it. So what
Hmm.
really helped me was just reading. I read so many books about childhood trauma and how your brain works, and that's how I cope. When I mean, obviously, when you go through therapeutic sessions like that, it wouldn't just go away. Like people think that it will magically just go away. Like you will never forget about this trauma because those are your memories. What's important really is when you finally find the ways to cope so that you can live with them and have it not become a burden to your growth. I think that should be the goal, not the not that it will go away forever, because I don't think it ever goes away.
It's just
Yeah.
like learning to tame your demons instead of
Yeah.
destroying them. Because you're,
You said it so much more eloquently.
I, I like to listen to a lot of like psychologists and stuff too. I think that's why I thrived so much in the bartending industry. One of my dream jobs as a kid that I wanted was to be a psychologist, a psychiatrist, and my family told me, um, "You don't want to be like that. Like those people are really messed up. That's the only way that they can correlate to those people." And I'm like,
Mm.
I'm really messed up though. My child
You don't have no idea.
you have no idea. Like my childhood was not great, and like we all knew that. Like it was my
Mm.
mom and my grandma telling me, like, no, those people have like a lot of really bad issues. I'm like, we have issues. Like
Mm.
I should be able to relate to them, but I don't know. They were very opposed to me going to college for to be a psychologist. So I studied it in my downtime, and I still do. And I think it's one of the things that really helped me thrive in like bartending or like
Mm.
speaking to people, especially like I like to read about a lot of like dark psychology, dark
Mm.
empathy. The it kind of almost it makes you feel better knowing that you're not alone in those like
and
depression
that
moments
and
or
that
those
it's not a curse,
yeah.
like, yeah, it will make you feel bad at sometimes, but it is not a curse. Like it's almost kind, like, to me, I look at it as a gift that is high maintenance,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like most creatives have enough trauma to be able to come up with bright ideas. I feel like if you don't have trauma in your life, then what is your reference? What is your
Well,
yeah.
one guy said this, and it's gonna sound so mean before I put it into context, but he was basically saying, you know how everybody says like, "Oh, everyone's creative," and
Mm.
he was like, "No." He's like, "Not everyone is creative." He's like, "Why would you put that curse upon somebody?" He's like, "Not everyone is creative because not everyone is up. Not everyone has
Right,
gone through the
right,
trauma to be able to
yeah,
create a beautiful masterpiece or
right,
music or whatever. Like that kind of stuff comes from our brains being a little bit different, and it's
yeah.
going to show in different ways, like whether it's through painting or creating a game or creating a
Mm.
song. Like, but not everyone is creative. I wouldn't wish that curse upon anybody. Like, you can create
Yeah, I
beautiful
think
things.
you just think, yeah, I agree with you. You just think
Yeah.
differently, and you're able to process patterns and thoughts in a completely different way. Because I talked about it with some of my other friends, and we talk about like, how do you think about things? And with me, it's like a shelf. Like I know exactly where it's at, and this is what I'm gonna channel right now. And then when I'm trying to create something, like, oh, what about we combine these two books from this shelf? That's how I think about stuff. And my friends would have like, mine is like televisions. Like if I have like different monitors in front of me, so everybody processes it different, but I feel like it's the same concept. Like we're all processing different things because of the things that happened to us in the past. Yeah.
And it
Before
all
we
comes. No, you go first.
sorry, sorry. Before we continue, this is embarrassing. I am so dumb. So my camera is right there, right?
Yeah,
And
mine
my
is.
laptop is right here. And I have a stand, and I'm like, maybe I should put my laptop on the stand so that I can look at the camera I'm
I
like,
kind of
oh,
don't like it. I don't know. I'm one of those
here,
people that
I'll
has a
try it.
really hard time making eye contact sometimes. Like, I'm that person that utilizes all those weird tricks. Like, I'll look at your nose or your forehead, or like, I'll do like the little like triangle where I'm like looking in a triangle because it's
Mm,
very hard for me to maintain eye contact with other people and with myself. Like, I don't want to look at myself.
really?
Yeah.
Look, see, if I put it this way, then I would be kind of like looking at you without like,
I think you almost kind of felt like the what was the vibe you were giving off? Like the nonchalant storyteller vibe when it was like
oh
looking
my
down
God,
there.
I can't believe I'm doing this right now. But I feel like if I don't do it, it's just gonna bother me the entire time.
And you gotta
You
do
know,
what you
like
gotta
when you
do.
think about stuff, like when you Google, like when, like, oh, who's that actor and where did I appear? And you think about it, and because you're watching a movie, you're gonna wanna research it later, but then it's bothering you the entire time, so you kind of want to just get it over with and Google it now.
Yep. I
Oof.
I'm so glad I'm not the only one that has those little ticks because my boyfriend does not have those ticks. He's very stoic, very cut dry. He's all the aspects of a Virgo that I wish I was. Like, not overly. He's analytical, but not to the point where he's too analytical to where he beats himself up.
Mm.
And I'm that way.
Oh my
And
God, this is so much better.
I purposely
And
before
why I
we got
didn't?
on here, I set up the camera because I was like, I don't want to look at myself, and I like was freaking. I was messing with my camera on my
Mm.
iPad and being like, okay, if I set it here, then I can look at him and not have to like look at me. I don't want to look at me.
So wait, so your setup is you have a
My camera
separate
is right here
camera?
on the side, so I
It's
know
like
like
a
no.
webcam,
Yeah, it's my iPad, and the
and
camera
then
is right.
your mic
I'm
is
using
separate.
the iPad mic. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay.
Okay. I think that's just because we're still in the unfinished basement. We haven't done anything, so there's like it's like an
No,
echo
no,
chamber down here.
no. I'm just curious because you look like you're looking at the camera.
Do I?
Yeah,
I'm used to
like
the camera,
it's
so
almost
like with
kind
the
of like you're
iPhone.
you're talking to me, but I know like when I look at myself, I'm just looking down because I'm looking at my laptop.
And I just figured if I looked at you, then it would kind of almost look like I'm looking in the camera, but I'm not.
Mm. I'm gonna have to figure this out because I mean, obviously,
We'll just try different things. I
yeah,
saw this
yeah.
one. I didn't know this was a tick with people, but I saw this just today. It was a TikTok video, and you know, like the ASMR videos, especially
Mm.
like the let me do your like those people. But this girl had like geared it to where like this is ASMR, me doing your makeup, but for people who don't like eye contact. So she purposely like wasn't looking at the camera, and I'm like, I didn't even think about that because I
Uh,
know I'm uncomfortable making eye contact with people sometimes. And I started, ever since I saw that video, I notice like when I go through and see people's TikToks and they're talking to the camera, I'm reading the captions. Like, I'm not looking in their eyes. Like,
I think
I don't know.
that's one of the things that are freaking me out when I make videos because I'm like I'm talking to the lens right now. Like
Mhm.
it's weird,
It is.
and I know actors and models do that, 24/7, and I think you need to be some kind of to do that successful because it's so weird.
I think they just have that really good mentality of the whole fake it till you make it thing.
Mm.
Because that's all that I do with
You
my
compartmentalize.
I compartmentalize and like I can hold it together for a certain amount of time. Like with bartending, my stipulations, if you were to call me in for a bartending shift, you need to give me a proper amount of time because there's like a prep time that I have to do mentally to become the person that you want
Mm.
behind the bar. Because if I
Wow.
don't, it's going to be hell for my coworkers and it's going to be hell for the people there. I'm just not going to be able to like be the self that I need to be. I'm going to be real Jessica, which is quiet and timid and doesn't make eye contact with me.
That is so funny because again, like I as a flight attendant, I'm an introvert in an extroverted job,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why my rituals are very important to me getting ready for work. And it has been a source of conflict when my partner and I worked the same flights. And
Mhm.
so we would, because we have this program where, like, if you don't use your hotel room, they'll just pay you the money, right? Since
Ooh.
we're traveling together and we're together, so we would just be on the same hotel room. And then the
Mhm.
getting ready part was such a challenge because to me, like, it's my pet peeve when I'm in the bathroom getting ready. Like maybe I'm fixing my hair or brushing my teeth, and somebody comes in and like does something else.
Mhm. Like, get out of my space.
Yeah, I'm like getting into character right now, and you're like messing it up. And so I can totally relate to that because being a flight attendant, you kind of have to become a completely different person for the rest of the day, and then you can take off your mask when you get to your hotel room.
So I have a question for you. Did you meet your partner at work, or did you meet them before you started working there?
We met at work, and we knew of each other ever
Mhm.
since we started. So we've been in the same company for over a decade now. And since we started, we knew of each other, but we're from different bases. And that's almost kind of like a red flag to us is if you're not from the same base, then like what's the point? We're not gonna
Yeah.
see each other. So we never did anything for like 8 years
Yeah.
until later on, and then we kind of reconnected on a flight. We ended up talking, and we were both on the same phase in life where I'm like, I'm done dating, I'm just going to be alone forever, right? And he was the same, and we connected through that. He was like, no, I'm done dating too, like it started as like a catching up, like, oh, how you been, like I haven't flown with you in so long, or I haven't seen you around, but because uh, we're acquainted. So then we learned we're both the same saving for a house, right? We're both
Yeah.
like trying to like spruce up our credit scores because we're about to buy houses our own. I said I might just like adopt, when it comes to kids and stuff like that. And he was
Mhm.
like looking into it too. So that's how it all started. So before
Well,
we even went on our first date, we already knew of each other's credit scores, how much student loan you have, how much money you have in the bank. Because like we're both in that uh, place where we're like, if you're not it, then
what's
I'm
the
not
point?
gonna waste my time dating somebody and then learn 6 months later, a year later, that we don't have the same goals, or that your credit is up, and then I can't do anything with you because you know, or like they don't want children, or like they don't like dogs. Those
Yeah.
things are very important. Um, so that's how it worked for me, and I'm happy because he's like the outsider energy that I need every time I get overwhelmed with the business, because he supports me in a way where he's not trying to tell me what to do.
That's
Um,
that's really
yeah,
important. I was just curious
yeah,
because, like, you and I talked about like rituals before work to get in
mhm,
that mindset and that certain personality. Because I don't feel like the personality that we put on for our job is fake. It is definitely a part of us, but it's not really. It's like a crazy diet. Like, you can do
mhm,
it for a little while, but it's not like sustainable. And I feel like that's
yeah.
kind of like how our work personalities are. So when you guys got together, did you have to like give him the rundown? Because I had to do this with my
Oh yeah,
boyfriend and be like,
oh yeah,
I'm not like this all the time. Like, I need
yeah,
you to know this is work personality, and then there's home personality, and they're different.
yeah. Well, I kind of function almost the same at work because at work it really depends on how you create an atmosphere so that your passengers are all like calm, nobody's gonna be fighting, nobody's gonna question your decisions during the day, or like nobody's gonna be rude to you. Like I create that kind of environment. That's why I try to create a home as well.
Mm-hmm.
So like I always want, like, at home and at work, everything has to be super clean and organized. Otherwise, I can't function very well. I feel like the energy that I'm then giving off is like a chaotic energy. So yeah, that rundown has been like, if we don't have the same mentality over this, then I don't think it's gonna work out living together.
I
Because I
had to
know
give,
people would still like, oh, they're gonna change, or
yeah,
they're gonna compromise. I'm like, no, it's not. That's not even the point. Like, if you guys don't agree with how you want to live your life, then it's gonna
yeah,
come up at some point.
exactly. I feel like I had to give my boyfriend a bigger rundown just because, like, I was his bartender for 4 years before we got together. But, like, the first bar that I worked at it was a very rough bar. Like, there was a dress code because there was so much gang violence in the area. So, like, we had a dress code. And I remember the first night that I started bartending, there was like this curse on the female bartenders. There was only one at night female bartender, and they kept getting pregnant, and then they couldn't work
Oh,
anymore. So then I got shoved into that position, and everyone joked, they're like, Jessica's gonna get pregnant, and I'm like, no, I'm not. But I remember the first night that I went to work, I had been a waitress already there for a year. I knew the environment, but I just never. The bartenders at that place had all of the authority. They were the ones who
mm.
kicked people out if they needed to. And the shifts that I was getting, it was just going to be me and a waitress. There was no doorman. There was no nothing. There was a
Oh.
broken pool stick that I would keep in the back. And I never used it, but it was just there to be like, I have a pointy stick, don't mess with me. But I had to have this kind of like air of like little G.I. Jane badass almost. So the rundown that I had to give for my boyfriend was like, listen, I'm an emotional wreck. I am very sensitive. I can't show any weakness at the bar because it was almost like prison at that place. It was a crazy dive bar, great money, but you earned every bit of it. And it was almost like what the guy told me when I first started my bartending shift was your balls drop tonight and this is prison. So once a week you just have to pick someone out that's messing up, that's breaking the rules, and you have to go off on them so everyone sees not to mess with you. So I got this.
Oh, I didn't even know
Yeah,
that's what bartenders do.
there's been
Wow.
a few bars that I've worked at, especially like when I started getting into bodybuilding, because I started getting into bodybuilding like once we moved to Arizona. And so not having any friends or relationships there, when I started doing that, people became very intimidated by me. And
I would be too.
I've never had people scared of me, and it is so it's it's kind of a good feeling. I can't it's it's this kind of euphoric high, especially knowing myself, knowing I've never punched anybody. I never want to be in a fight. I don't think I do good in a fight, if I'm being honest. But just to like know that like walking through the bar, if somebody would like brush shoulders with me, to almost like to see them cower, I felt bad, but I also felt really good. I can't believe you're terrified of me. But you should be. Like
Bow
I
down.
leaned
Wow.
into it. The sensitive emotional part that I am like in 90% of my life, I'd be like, no, please don't cower. But then that 110% that's work Jessica is like, no, turn into that.
Yeah.
Let everyone see that they're scared.
Yeah, no, I think that you would need that kind of energy, especially in the service industry. And I can relate to it too, because if you if you project an energy where people can walk all over you, then they'll walk over you.
It's
And
that
like,
fine line. Like
yeah,
you don't want people to be too scared, but you don't want people to not be scared at all.
yeah,
Like it's
because yeah, it's not gonna be good for you when you start believing that being nice and is, I mean, you're gonna be nice and respectful, but I've always been very assertive as well, because it's, I mean, I learned my lesson. Like, sometimes the people that you help, they're the ones that screw you over.
mm-hmm. I learned that a
So
lot with
yeah.
especially I have a soft spot for old people. I especially with like cleaning, that's why I left bartending to like start my own cleaning business before we moved. I have a big soft spot for old people, and that's because I don't plan on having kids. It's not because I
Mm.
don't like kids, it's just I feel like my family hooked up enough and I don't want to put a tiny person through that. But so I have this soft spot for old people because I kind of think about it as like paying karma into the future. That like some
Oh,
nice young person will be nice to me when I'm an old wrinkly lady.
oh,
But at the bars, I would try and make sure like all the old people that would come in, because it became like a part of their routine, and they would come in and talk to you because they didn't really have anyone else to talk to.
mm,
But a lot of them would really take advantage of it, and like it hurts so much, like knowing like I tried to be so nice to this person and then they turned around and like
Yeah,
tried to be creepy or like be weird. And I'm like,
yeah,
why? Like,
yeah. That just reminds me of one of my passengers who was quadriplegic, so they had no arms and
and no
no legs,
legs.
and so they were traveling with a travel companion. So of course, like I was extra nice. They were like up front, and it turned out he was the worst passenger ever because he would like curse at everybody, and he like when the pilots came out, he was like bartender. I called the pilot bartender. I want 2 more checks, and then just like did like racist stuff, sexist stuff, like really loud. And in my, I even told my captain like, can we get somebody like that arrested? Like
Yeah.
I don't
Like,
that I don't know. I would feel so bad if they get arrested, but at the same time they're really being belligerent. So yeah, we ended up not doing anything about it, but it's almost kind of scarred me for life. I'm like, oh, the people that you're gonna be so nice to, sometimes they're the ones that are gonna turn around and abuse it. You know?
especially with people in that position, because like you could,
Mm,
even if they were just like just nitpicky about the little things, especially being like a
mm,
quadriplegic or like dealing with certain things.
mm,
I have a fuse a mile long, especially if you have something else going on in your life. I can
mm,
understand like, hey, you are angry at the world because you
mhm,
got dealt a shit hand. And I could put up with that for so long. But I've met a lot of people that have gone through awful, awful things.
mm.
And they're some of the nicest people that I've met too. So when I like it's still hard for me to separate and be like, you you're acting like an asshole and I understand, but like this dude went through the same thing and he's not an asshole. So like
Yeah, yeah.
why?
And to me, it's unfair to the rest of the plane, because those people
Compared
paid
to the
for
rest
it.
of the
Okay,
world.
so yeah, they paid to be there to have like a peaceful time, and then
Mm-hmm.
you're abusing your situation. But yeah, I just be careful, and I've learned so many things being a flight attendant that I still am today using. That's for sure. Yeah, and I think like being on like doing this podcast, and we're about to meet so many people from all walks of life. Which, by the way, because I required them to like tell us what they do so that we can get some kind of perspective, and maybe for pairings and stuff.
Yeah.
They're the clicks to be on our guest list. Their careers are like, to me, super interesting. Like we could probably talk for hours and hours and have to like comb through to edit the whole thing,
And
but I can't wait to hear their stories. One of them, which I'm excited about. I think he's the one that I already talked on the phone before, because uh, something was wrong with the shipping, and he's like a correctional officer.
ooh.
I know, so I can't wait to like ask like questions. Um, we had nurses. So
I could
yeah.
see nurses. Nurses deal with a lot.
Yeah. I
You need a
am waiting
release.
for somebody from the military, because I've had a lot of orders from military personnel where I have to send to the bases, and I'm just waiting. Hopefully, hey, if you're listening,
I know.
please, we need
Military
military
people,
people on
hop
the
on.
show. You need to like tell us your dark side.
That was so my stepdad was in special forces and he had some of the darkest bits of humor and it's special
Mm.
forces if you're on here join, they'll be funny, they'll be really funny.
No, I feel like any kind of traumatic event that you've processed over your lifetime and then became like a catalyst of who you are now as a person, it's always going to be a very interesting story to tell, because you're gonna come from a very unique perspective that's unique to the situation that you survived in, and that's just super interesting to me, because over the years I've learned, oh, I have a bad childhood, and I have this depression and anxiety, and you'd think that you would be the worst in the worst situation. But when you hear other people's stories, you'd be like, oh, I'm such a
Well, and it helps too, especially like people that are going through something similar. Maybe it might not be the exact same thing, but to see somebody that's overcome it, or maybe they're not fully over it, but they're just comfortable enough to talk about it. I think that's what's wonderful about this whole thing is like people, because obviously, I think you and I have talked about it. A lot of people that are going to be drawn to your game are like messed up millennials. And it's, I don't know if it was ever like this for you growing up, but I remember like my mom had self-help books, and my grandma would be like, oh, that's only for people who are like really messed up. So there was like this weird stigma around like therapy and self-help. And I remember the first time that I ever thought about ordering a self-help book, it was called the Happy Empath. I was just in a lot of my emotions right now. I wasn't able to like regulate them, and from what I saw on the reviews of that book, I was like, I think I want to order it. But I was so scared. Like I asked my boyfriend, I was like, are you going to think that I'm a psycho because I ordered this? And he's like, no. He's like, if you're trying to better yourself, like that's good.
Yeah.
Like why would you think that? Like it's just a weird stigma that was like not brought up from my childhood.
And even to this day, I feel like it's still stigmatized for you to talk about. That's why I like readily talk about it. I have anxiety and depression because I feel like if people can talk about like, I have a heart condition, that's why I couldn't run, or I have some other condition. It doesn't have like when they tell us that, our automatic response is like, oh, I need to make sure that they're comfortable and that I don't make them feel alienated, right? But
Yeah.
then it's different when you're talking about mental stuff because people try to then start to like back away. I'm like, wait a second. And to me, I'm like, this, like, I think that it should change slowly. And I want to be like, I don't know that we can affect so many people, but if one person's listening to this right now, like, you know,
And
and
it helps
to,
them,
yeah,
even if
it,
it's
it-
just for a
yeah,
moment. It's those little building blocks. Like,
yeah. And yeah, and I'm very excited to meet the people that are playing my game because I know for sure like they're all going to be really interesting. I have a very dark as in really dark memories about mental health, like not about me but another family member, and I don't think I'd be ever ready to talk about it publicly. I don't even think that I've talked to my partner about it, maybe like casually, but because it's so dark, right? Like, and because we're talking about like the stigma, right?
yeah.
That's why I'm like, no, I don't think the world is ready for that. Maybe one day when I truly don't care what other people think about me. But I'm still in that phase where like, sure, I don't care. I'm gonna do whatever I want, but at the same time, like I don't want people to be scared or like have thoughts of like I'm in danger.
I think maybe it's just it takes time to process things and like to articulate your, like I said, we're both emotional sponges, so it's probably something that you haven't really felt confident enough to articulate to be able to speak on it without like bringing other people down, like not
and
finding
and
a
it should
right.
be easy. It should be
Yeah,
easy because it didn't happen to me, right? It didn't happen to me. But
but it still
also,
affected you.
yeah, it I feel like I'm gonna make a lot of people look bad. And it's anyway, it's
It's
just it's not a normal situation. Like if anything, like it just reminds me of the show X-Files,
yeah,
kind of like that situation. But
taboo situation. But I
yes,
think maybe
yes.
as time passes, it'll become less taboo.
Yeah, I hope
Not
so.
maybe less taboo,
I
but
hope
more
so.
easier to navigate, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, I hope so. Yeah, it's just one of those things that you never forget as a child that you've
Mm-hmm.
seen and experienced and witnessed. to me, that's probably why I gravitate so much towards people who are hurting, because I've felt so much of that, even if it wasn't happening to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and it's always a cause for concern, because my partner's family, I mean, they're very, very, very supportive, but sometimes they do joke like, "How sure are we that you're not gonna kill our son in his sleep?"
Yeah.
Like
I
coming up
get
with this card game.
I get it, especially because like I feel it a lot. It's something I think the closest I can relate. It's probably not the same situation as yours, but the closest
Mm,
that I can relate is the no contact thing. I went no contact with my mom at the age of 18, and I
mm,
had always known it was going to be that way. But when
mm,
I did it, there was not as many people talking about it as like I see now, and that was
mm,
like I was never really a social media person. I didn't really want to get on TikTok, but once I did, like, and I started seeing like more people talking about, hey, I went no contact because of this. It made me feel more comfortable. So I'm not like
mm.
if I don't really talk about it a whole lot on my channel because I don't want to be like I try and make people smile or I
Right,
post
right.
dumb reviews, but I'm not as ashamed of it now, like talking to somebody face to face
Hmm.
about it. But it's
Yeah.
still like people still have that weird stigma about like what's so wrong with you that your family isn't around you, or like when I'm around other people's families, like I feel like they have this air about me about
Hmm.
like maybe I won't care about them as much because I don't have as big a family support system as they're used to, and
Hmm.
it's not like that. And people like get over that really quickly with me, but it's still an odd thing. It's an odd path to navigate, and you feel alone for a while until you find somebody to like that's gone through the same thing. And I
Thanks
think
for
even
opening
then,
up about
of
that,
course,
because uh, I'm actually no contact with my mom as well. Although we just texted the other day,
yeah.
because I don't like, I'm not completely like shutting her off, as in like I'm not gonna ever talk to you ever again kind of thing. It was
Mm-hmm.
more of like I'm setting my boundaries because it's not good for my mental health kind of thing. So we
Yeah.
do, we greet each other on holidays and birthdays, and sometimes we text, but we kind of agreed that we should never be that involved in each other's lives, because
Mm-hmm.
it's not healthy for the both of us kind of thing. um and I don't think it's like that you should be ashamed, or that you're in no contact. I think it should be a source of pride, in my opinion, because to me personally, I think it takes a lot of courage to go against the grain, because
Mm-hmm.
people are gonna judge you no matter what. But the closest to you would say, but that's your parent, you know no matter what you
That's
do,
what.
that's your parent. Like, what are you gonna do? What about your memories? What about, if they suddenly die and you didn't get the chance to spend time with them?
Mm-hmm.
And with me, it's like, people wouldn't understand, and they would be so quick to judge when they truly don't know the situation. If you're
But
doing it
it's
for your mental health, like, I don't think it's anything to be ashamed of at all.
no, because
Yeah.
if it was a friend or a romantic partner or like somebody else, if anybody else treated you that way enough to make you be like, I can't be around you, like no one would blink an eye. They'd just be like, oh, you got rid of a toxic friend, you
Right,
got rid of a toxic partner. But when you
right,
do
right.
that to a parent, like I'm so glad that the stigma is starting to go away and people are realizing like you do deserve respect and a good relationship
Exactly.
between your family, but
Yeah,
like there's still that little stigma. It's starting to go
yeah.
away, but
No, because the way I look at it is, they're your family, so they
yeah,
shouldn't be doing those toxic things to you, or they shouldn't be creating a toxic environment for
exactly.
you, for your family in the first place. And for you to set a boundary, I think it's a new thing, like as you said, like, there's
Mhm.
stigma to it, but I'm glad that our generation is waking up to that, because it doesn't, it doesn't mean that your family, that you have all the rights to abuse me all my life. No.
Exactly. For me,
This
it was so weird because like I said, when I did it, I wasn't around a lot of people that were used to that idea. I know there
Mhm.
was other people doing it at the same time as me. I'm not a pioneer by any means, but
Mhm.
like, it was so weird, especially for like my other family members and for my friends, because all they all saw exactly what I was going through, and they validated, like, hey, the way that she speaks to you, the way what you're dealing with is not right. And so when I finally had the choice as an adult to be like, no, like, I've I know what you're doing to me is wrong. I know what you're saying to me is wrong, and I'm done with it. And I wrote
Mhm.
out like a letter, and I was like, this is what I need in order for us to have a relationship. And never heard anything back. But then,
Mhm.
like, all the people that had validated what she was doing is wrong
Mhm.
immediately like switched sides, and they're like, but that's your mom. Like, why would you do that? I'm
Yeah.
like, but you saw everything. Like, why? I was not anticipating for them to act that way. I was more, and I wasn't looking for them to like validate my reason on going no contact. I was just
Mhm.
looking for a little bit of support to be like, hey, I hope you're okay. Like, that's really all I
Yeah.
wanted. But
Or the just not judge
yeah,
you for doing it.
don't
It's
judge me,
that's
especially
the
when you
yeah.
saw the situation. Like,
Yeah.
it's so
To
weird.
just put themselves in your shoes for a second and how they would
Yeah.
feel, being in that situation. My closest friends, the very first friends I made when I moved here in the United States, at first they were like, "Oh, that's your mom, and you can't do that. That's not even part of our culture. Like, that's very disrespectful." And over the years, they kept reminding me, but then they kept seeing what's happening. Like
Mm-hmm.
my mom, she's not verbally abusive at all. She's not. She's a very nice lady. Only, and I understand that where she's coming from is also because she's went through so much in her life, right?
Exactly.
And when they became parents, like they could only do their best. It just imagine like us if we became parents right now
Yeah.
and we're dealing with our mental health. I think we're bound to make mistakes as well.
Of course. There's no like foolproof way to parent.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
all you can do is
So
try your best.
that's where I'm coming from. It's like I still try to be kind and respectful and like just set a boundary respectfully,
Mm-hmm.
because I know, like, even it like some most of the things that she's did to me are not even as bad as, you know the things that happen between her and my sisters. And what's funny about it is my sisters are like still in it. Like, yeah, I know she's abusive, but like she's my mom, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
I would have conversations with her. I don't want to speak for them, obviously, but my take on it is it's a choice. At some point, when you're an adult, it's a choice. It's your responsibility. If you're suffering from a toxic environment and you don't remove yourself from that, then that's your fault.
Mm-hmm.
That's nobody's fault at all. That's on you. So,
Exactly. And everyone has their own breaking point. And I feel
mhm,
like I have not met a single person that went no contact with their parent just for nothing. It was usually for survival, honestly, for
mhm, mhm.
survival mentally. Like, they just could not bear it anymore. And they knew that
Yeah,
in order to have any shred of happiness, like, they just couldn't have that person in their life.
yeah,
And I think a lot of people confuse it. I know my grandparents definitely confuse it because they still kind of like bring it up, like, maybe you
mhm,
should reach out to your mom. And I'm like, you guys saw everything. You guys saw
yeah,
everything that was going
mhm.
on. And I always have to, like, I always try and remind them, like, I just because I don't talk to her doesn't mean I don't love her. I
Yeah.
have to let
It
her
doesn't
know
mean
how
that we
far.
hate them. Yeah,
Exactly.
there's no
She's my
hate.
mother.
There's just
I will
yeah,
always love her.
yeah,
I have to love her from a distance. Otherwise,
exactly.
my mental health will go to shit. And even
Yeah,
without her in my life, my mental health is still shit.
yeah,
We go
and
through those lives.
yeah, it does help. It helps a lot because when you are no longer in an atmosphere that makes you question yourself all the time or question your worth, like it helps a lot. Like I don't know if there's any person out there that would say, "Oh, that would be a bad thing."
Mhm. Yeah. I
Yeah,
see you're happier. Shame
yeah.
on you. Like that's what it sounds like.
Mm. Um,
Especially, I don't know. I feel like I've grown into a lot more. I was, as a kid, I was so terrified to talk to people. Like I used to have this weird, it wasn't a stutter, but like I had this weird tick where I'd like say something and then I'd like mouth it back to myself. I don't know what that is, but like I'd say a
I've
sentence
only
and then
seen
I'd
that
like,
in movies.
have you seen that?
I've
My
seen
mom
it in
would get
movies.
my mom would get so irritated. She's like, "Why do you do that?" And I'm like, "I don't know." But like, I was so nervous and so shy. I remember in speech class in high school, it was hard for me to try and speak without like bursting into tears. And
Uh,
like, I don't know what that was. But I, once I went no contact with my mom and I started like really focusing on myself because I had never done that before. There was always
mhm,
this big stigma in my family too about
mhm.
like self-care being rather selfish, and
Yeah,
again it's a fine line between self-care and the good selfish and the bad selfish.
yeah.
But once I started focusing on myself and doing the good selfish, like I was able to learn
The
how
good
to like
stuff.
function in society. I think that's a beautiful thing about like introverts like us is introverts can play the part of the extrovert, but extroverts can't play the part of
Yeah.
introverts.
I
Like
don't think extroverts can introspect as much as we do. Like
I don't think so either, and
yeah,
I wouldn't wish it upon them because I
because
analyze everything about myself.
my partner, I think he's an extrovert,
Hmm.
and our thoughts function completely different. With me, before fall asleep at night, I would be thinking about a million things until my brain's probably like too tired, and then I'll just fall asleep.
Hmm.
With my partner, it's like, oh, it's time to bed. It's time for bed. I'm gonna sleep now. Boop. That's it.
Does he fall asleep as soon as his head hits the pillow?
Oh yeah,
D-
yeah,
Lucky bastard.
yeah. So I feel like they don't have that. Like and he even said like, no, I don't think about things that happened 20 years ago. I don't even think about things that happened that day. Like
Yeah,
if it's time to sleep, I'm gonna sleep. I'm like, you're so lucky.
I know.
Yeah.
That's how my boyfriend is. We go to bed and he's asleep before his head even hits the pillow. And I'm up for another 3 hours, like analyzing everything that I did today, analyzing like why was I crying about these whale videos that I saw, random
No,
things.
and sometimes I even catch myself really thinking about mistakes from my childhood. What would have
Hmm.
happened if I didn't do that, or I didn't do this, or this didn't happen? And then it just rabbit holes to like, oh, my life would change like this. And it
Hmm.
dominoes, because, everything dominoes. And I'm like, my life would be completely different. And to me, I'm like, "Eesh." I think that's like one of the things that is part of the curse, is because like there's nothing really you can do to change anything.
No,
And
that's
to,
how your
yeah,
brain is.
yeah, and to introspect like that to that point, I think it's already useless when you're not learning
It is.
anything.
I
You're
think it's
really
helping you cope, but really it's not very productive. Because I do the
no.
same thing, like especially I'll get in like random funks where I'm like I analyze the relationship with me and my mom, and like I'll go back and I'll like remember certain things that like hurt my feelings, and I'll go back and like try and put myself in her shoes to like live as her life, like what we were going through, what was her
Mm,
financial situation, because she was a
yeah,
single mom. Like I know she had a lot on her plate, and especially like I was an emotional mess. I always have been. So for someone who's not an emotional mess to deal with a tiny emotional child, I know it was hard on her, like so hard. But I'll
yeah,
go back and I'll analyze situations like that and I'll be like, "Well, let me live as my mom for a minute in that." And it's not
mm,
productive at all. I come out feeling the same way, but it's still it almost feels like it's something that you have to think about. Otherwise, I'll go crazy if I don't run
yeah,
that scenario through my head in its entirety. I go
yeah. Because
insane.
sometimes you would think like, am I a bad person?
Yeah, because
Yeah,
I want to take accountability for my shit. I'm
yeah,
not perfect. I know I'm
yeah,
far from it. So I always like to try and like analyze like where did I mess up? because
Yeah.
unless I learn from it, I'm gonna keep repeating it.
Right. And I know like that, well, introspecting like that, thinking about my parents and what happened to our family, um, it helps because in a way that you'd understand if you were like at their age, what were you doing exactly at your age, right? When they were 18 or 19 or 20 and they were married and had children, what were you doing when you were 21 years old, right?
Exactly.
You
I
were
was
not
a
raising
psychopath.
children.
My mom had me
That's for
as
sure.
soon as she turned 20. Like a month after she turned 20, she had me. And so like when I turned 20, I put myself in her shoes and I was like, there's no way. There's no way I could deal
Yeah.
with a kid right now. Like
No.
I am insane. And then you throw a kid on top of it, and then like all, especially for women, like all
Yeah.
the hormone changes. I'm like,
Yeah.
I get it. Like I totally get it.
Yeah. It helps in a way that there will be no hate because you totally understand their situation, right?
Exactly.
You understand where it's coming from. But at the same time, in the same vein, when I said when you're an adult, it's your responsibility to create an ideal environment for yourself. Our parents have been adults for a really long time, and if they haven't done anything to change their situation, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's on them. And all you
Exactly.
can do really is to make sure that it doesn't happen to you, make sure that you create a completely different life path for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's like I think everybody's biggest fear is like, oh, I've become my mother, or I become my father. Like, oh, it's just the same mistakes that she did. Like obviously I'm bound to repeat it. So to me, cutting my one of my parents off is a choice that is to make peace
Mm-hmm.
and to probably like actually stop hating them. It's so ironic like that because like if I'm still super involved, then I think I would be judging her. Like I wouldn't have that moment to think about why they do the things that they do, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't think
yeah.
you'd have like the mental space to like be able to give her that respect, to like live in her shoes and be like understand why she does the things that she does. Like the only person that can change those things are those people who are going through that.
Yeah.
But like I said, with us, I think when we step away and we analyze it, like that's all we're trying to do is just understand. Okay, this is why you act that way. But then it's hard because we realize like we can't do anything to help
No,
them
really.
change.
No, it has to, as an adult, it has to come from you. And
Mhm.
that is why, I'm setting boundaries because what am I going to do when, I'm on my deathbed and I'm so miserable because
You
I,
follow the
I
social norms everyone else
yeah,
told you
I didn't get to do the things I wanted to do. I
to. Hmm.
didn't get to go, places where I wanted to go because we're trapped in the social norms and especially as an Asian boy, you know, like in Asia,
Yeah,
like family is like everything. It's like
I
dishonor to
know.
your family.
And this on your cow. This
Yeah. Dishonor on your rice.
I wonder about
Yeah.
that too, especially like my boyfriend is Hispanic, so like
Mm,
we both come from different cultural norms as well,
mm,
and it's so like I don't know. I I don't know that much about my heritage, which is why like I always love learning about others. Like
mm,
I love to learn about all different types because like my family was not the ideal family. Nobody really talked about like where we came from, so I have no idea about my
mm,
culture. I just know that
mm.
my family made potato club, and it's an awful dish. It's a terrible, terrible dish. I don't recommend anyone make it. It's basically you just take a potato and you boil it until all the goodness is gone, and it looks like gray glue, and you eat it.
Wait, so it's like it's not mashed potatoes, it's
It's
you boil it.
no, it's called potato club with a K, and it's a Norwegian dish. That's the only thing I
Mm.
know about my culture
So
is
it becomes
potato
like
club.
um how do you say it? Like not
It's like a
soup, like a
it's a
stew?
paste. No, so they
Oh.
take the potato and they cut it up and they like imagine that you're making mashed potatoes,
Mm.
but like when you take the potatoes out of the boiling water, you don't add salt or butter or anything. You just
Mm.
mash them up and then you put in a little bit of flour and you make them into a ball and then you boil them again. And it tastes like glue. It's
Oh,
horrible.
I mean, I think that would be salvageable if you put some spices on it, maybe a
Oh, it
sauce
is.
after. Yeah.
If you
Um,
slice it up really thin and like fry it and like put some butter and so like I've seen other pictures. I think in Norway, like in actual Norway, I think they make it with like little like bits of like ham and cheese in the middle,
hmm.
which sounds
Yeah,
really
yeah,
good. But then
I can with that.
yeah, I don't know. I always get scared to talk about this. I joke about it with my boyfriend as like almost like reverse racism on me because I'm like I want to learn about other people's stuff because like what I've learned about my family and my culture is boring. All I know is the potato club and that we didn't use seasonings. And like so like anything his family does, I'm always like interested in like what was your traditions? Like what's your values? Because we didn't
Mm.
have that in my family.
Especially, yeah, Hispanic people, they have like a lot of traditions, a lot of stuff, things that are really unique to their culture. I think we share, not all Asians, but only the Filipinos. We share a lot of traditions and culture with them because uh, we've been colonized by Spain for 300 over 300 years before. So that's
Mhm.
why we're Catholic. That's why we have our fiestas, and our dishes are very similar to Spanish dishes, not Mexican. Yeah, definitely Spanish because they're more saucy, and Filipino dishes are like that. Yeah, so and I'm excited because I our guests that the people that put in applications, they're
Mhm.
like most of them are from the United States, but I've seen people from other countries in there. So it would be interesting to actually know about like how does your culture treat dark thoughts, you know?
Mhm. I'm
And
excited for
yeah,
you said there was somebody from South Africa.
not on the application for the guest list. It was somebody who bought the game. Um,
Oh,
and I probably reach out because that person, if I remember correctly, was from Kickstarter. So I could probably reach out to them again and be like, hey, like, remember when I asked you if you wanted a podcast and you said yes? Like, we're doing it now. So do you want to come on? I think that would be awesome. Yeah.
I used to have a at the first bar that I worked at, we had pool leagues and there was a whole pool league of guys from South Africa and they
Mm.
all like of course I was very uneducated and I didn't realize and I just thought they were all British and they're like no from South Africa. It's different. Like it's just a very small different
Mhm.
dialect and but they still like they would say certain things the way that British people do. Like instead of
Mm.
vitamins they say vitamin and
Mhm.
instead of aluminum they'll go like aluminium.
Aluminium.
They were really good tippers, but I just like as soon as you said South Africa, I just imagined them again because they had really dark humor, and it was like a game that they knew that I was playing with them is to like I I would make sure that they got their drinks quick because it was fun to see them get a little tipsy and to like hear how they pronounce different things. So it was always fun to interact with them.
I still can't tell the difference between the British, the Australian, and the South African accent. I know
No?
people could, but I can't tell the difference. To me, it's very similar, which is true. So it's hard to like if you're not from there, then you would. I don't think you'd be able to tell.
The
Yeah,
thing that
but
I
you
love the most when I hear Australians talk is the way they say no. No.
that too. I'm excited. I've been waiting for people from Australia to actually come on the guest list because I've sold a lot of games in Australia. So
Really?
yeah, I even I myself was like, are you crazy? Like the shipping is more expensive than the game.
Because of like customs and stuff? Do they
Yeah,
have to
that
like
like I have no control of it. Like that's shipping,
oh
especially like if they bought the coffin box, the version that you have is like
uh-huh.
almost £5, and you ship
Yeah.
that all the way down to Australia. It's like crazy. It's crazy, and they bought it. And I'm like when I'm typing the addresses, I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
okay,
Cool.
you're how do you say it? A big spender.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm excited. I'm really happy that you guys said yes to this. And we're about to shoot our first game tomorrow. Oh,
Mm-hmm. I know. I'm
I
so
oh my
excited.
god. I know like Kiwi is gonna he's like really, really dark too. So
He seems like it. He seems like
yeah.
that good mix of like dark, but just like the right amount of empathetic to like
Mm.
just level it out.
He's actually the first winner of the game. The very first time that we played the game was with my partner, his parents, and then Kiwi. And we played it and he won. And I'm like, of course I lost my game. Like I actually never won serial killer until like later. Like I've
Yeah.
always lost to other people, which is so crazy. I'm like, I can't even beat my own game.
Oh, that's funny.
But yeah, again, thank you so much for doing this with me. I'm really excited. This is our first recording and I can't wait to like actually watch it.
I know. I'm
Yeah.
honored to be here. You keep telling me thank you, and I'm always so. I brag about you to my boyfriend, and he
Oh,
knows you're a good person because of how much I've had to say about you. But I'm honored that you even gave me the chance to do this. Like I said, I'm a nobody. I still feel like
no. I'm
a
always
nobody.
going to be the one who's going to say thank you to you.
I'm
it's
gonna
not
say thanks
it's not
back.
going to be the way around.
You start a niceness war, I will win.
Well, I actually just heard the mail truck come by because they usually like go around the cul-de-sac, and then I can drop my packages. So
I
like
know. I
I will.
gotta go. I didn't realize we've been talking for almost 2 hours.
What? Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that would be 1 hour 45 minutes.
I know.
So I'll take this as like the universe saying, "Oh hey, mail truck's here.
Yeah,
We can talk later."
I know. I'll see you tomorrow, you and Kiwi.
Yes, I'm so excited. So see you tomorrow. Thank you so much again for showing
No,
up.
thank you.
All right.
See,
How do we end it?
no. You want me to just hang up?